I have a guest commentator with me for the rest of the program who will be giving his thoughts and his perspective on the news and issues of the day. And he's the current affairs analyst and professor of communications at Baze University in Abuja, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi. Prof, good to see you as always.
Good to see you, Charles. Thanks for
let's start with Bayelsa State. What has happened there is something of a rupture to the aspirations of Timipre Silva, who is the APC governorship candidate there. But they believe that, you know, it's not going to be a problem because they're going to appeal and they believe they're going to win. What are your thoughts on that?
I think the first time we had this kind of case was when President Jonathan wanted to run sometimes last year, you know, and of course there was this argument that he's taken the oath twice. And so
well, he didn't actually say he wanted to run. It's just people.
No, of course it was speculations were rife, you know, and people were also. He also told Nigerians that he's still watching, he's still calculating, and so the signs were there that he was likely going to. That he would have run if the signs were clearer. But the point is that the argument was also there that in legal circles that he had taken the oath of office twice, and if you do that, it means that constitutionally you are barred from running again. Well, they would now have to wonder the difference between taking an oath twice and completing a two-term in office, you know, and running the two terms completely. You know, that's the difference that is still there, you know, to be addressed. And of course, that's what I imagine is coming up in Bayelsa. But beyond our opinion, beyond whatever we think,
it needs a Supreme Court pronouncement,
some kind
basically.
Of very higher legal interpretation and resolution of the matter, as the case could be.
I absolutely agree. So let's leave that because they said they've appealed, and therefore it'll run the gamut of the court system. But let's go to that very emotive situation in Gaza. Emotive on both sides, because some would argue that Israel has the right to defend itself, but the Palestinians will say that they've been defending themselves or trying to defend themselves for a very long time. I mean, what do you think? The key thing I was asking the ambassador there is, I mean, it was very touching, his family is in Gaza, is what's the best way to resolve the conflict?
It's been intractable for years, 75 years after we're still talking about it.
But we're talking about the immediate conflict, because you've got to stop the fighting before you start talking about longer term stuff.
I see your point. I think it's just for the two sides to remember that they cannot be right in a situation of war. Both of them cannot be right, you know. Each side, if they continue to say that, okay, it is our land, we have to defend ourselves, it's not going to resolve the crisis. What they need to do in the immediate circumstance, which we hope can be possible, is just to sheath their swords and go to the round table, you know, find ways of forgiving what has happened, painful as it is on both sides.
Yeah, but that's the problem. They
but that's the problem. And that's why the international community is somewhat coming in, even though the voices are discordant, you know. And the United Nations has a key role to play here. If they have any bite, WHO has come in, raising concerns about humanitarian crisis. Of course, we expected this with Israelis, you know, cutting water supply, cutting electricity supply, you know, triggering more suffering on the Palestinians, even though they haven't, you can't say that in the past that they have lived a life well as it should ordinarily should be. But it is worsening now, very pathetic, very unfortunate. And of course, we also have Hamas, you know, that is still strong-willed, you know, firing rockets, you know, threatening to butcher the hostages. We just hope this does not happen. Each time you hear about this story of the perennial problem of Arab-Israeli conflict, it just remind you of the fact that it's a sore point in the world, really. And of course, it reminds us as human beings that something is still amiss, that we are not yet at peace if a particular region cannot find peace. And
a very small area, Gaza and Israel.
That's right. And the danger is this continuous reference to history. You know, historical... it
means you're not going to be let go, basically.
Historical land is our property and all of that. You know, we have to understand that realities change, life is moving phases, understand the contemporaneous of affairs, you know, take the past as something that can be instructive, but you cannot determine the presence only on the basis of the past. If you do that, you'll be endangering your decision-making process and, of course, rupture signals into the future.
Absolutely.
That's what we're seeing happen.
Well, I mean, there is some slightly good news, though. I understand that several Arab states have taken steps to bolster their financial and humanitarian support for the Palestinians as the situation in Gaza worsens. And we heard from the European Union today saying it won't suspend aid to the Palestinians, reversing a claim made on Monday that all financial assistance would be suspended. 80% of Gaza residents depend on international aid, so that would have been a real tragedy. The question, of course, is how much of that aid will actually get to Gaza, which is besieged at
That's
the moment.
one. When the crisis is on, when you said it very clearly in your intro that Israelis are still pounding. The pounding is still continuing. They are preparing to go to the ground, to put boots on ground. When will this one end? Yes, we know that they were provoked, but faced with that provocation, there has to be this understanding that they have the superior firepower, arguably the fifth strongest military in the world, backed again by a superpower. So in terms of matching, in terms of moxes, they've got it much more than the Palestinians. But where do we go from here? Like the ambassador also said a while ago, we're all human beings after all. It doesn't matter. I think there has to be some realization of how to progress.
Well, I mean, we've got to go in a minute, but we're told there are back channels and discussions taking place that if perhaps Hamas would release the hostages, that might lessen the intensity of these.
But I've also seen reports that some of the hostages have already been butchered. We just know that this is not the case.
Well, it's not. Hamas are not saying they killed them. Okay. They're saying that they were killed in Israeli air raids.
Okay. But again, the back channel, we've been hearing stories of back channel in the past. Right. Let's hope that this one will be effective.
Well, we'll have to watch and see. Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, the current affairs analyst and professor of communications at Baze University in Abuja. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Charles.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja and Bayelsa State. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.